Hello, everyone. My name is Leslie Mace, and I am with the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta's Jacksonville branch, and I will be presenting in just about 1 minute. Okay, well, I have that it is, I'm on Eastern time, so it's 1 o'clock for me, and I am going to be presenting to you today about maximum employment, or how the Fed measures the labor market and labor market activity and labor market conditions. And before I start, one thing I did want to address, I saw a lot in the chat, several messages in the chat about virtual offerings. And so I want to set everyone's mind at ease. We are not going to discontinue our virtual offerings. In fact, we had many virtual offerings before the pandemic. And those are offered not only by your own Federal Reserve District, but also we have system virtual offerings as well. Two work groups that I'm involved in. We have two series that are system collaborations and virtual webinars that we have. One of them is called eConnections, which highlights resources that we have throughout the system that you can use in your classroom with students. And also another one is called Teaching Economics in Changing Times, which addresses contemporary issues in economics. And as someone who has joined this series, if you check that box so that we can contact you, you'll be able to get notices about when those are coming up. So, and you will also see that in your own districts. We're not going away, end our virtual offerings. Those will still always be offered. So I saw several people had a concern about that, and there will still be virtual offerings because we know for various reasons people may not be able to travel and so forth. So those will still be available. One of the things that I want to highlight is one of our resources from the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, or the 6th District. So that's an F on your $1 bill there, is our infographics. And I've got here where these posters can be ordered. So there are 11 economics posters. I've highlighted the economics in my visual here. We have one on economic systems, which talks about market and command economies, how they answer the 3 basic economic questions of what will be produced, how will it be produced, and for whom. We have, you can see here, our infographic on supply and demand. We have one on the Federal Reserves. A lot of the material that Eva covered is included on that poster. We have one on trade, which talks about the basic terminology of trade. It talks about trade barriers. It talks about absolute and comparative advantage. You can see that one of the ones we have there in the lower right-hand corner is fiscal and monetary policy. That's something that, students sometimes have a really hard time distinguishing between fiscal and monetary policy, who does what the tools are, how economic conditions are addressed using either fiscal or monetary policy. And so this addresses that. You can see right there, it tells who conducts fiscal policy, conducts monetary policy. We have an infographic on GDP, looking at the different components and other facts about GDP. Maximum employment's the one I'm going to be highlighting today. Why is it not called unemployment? Well, as Eva talked earlier with you about our dual mandate, and one part of our dual mandate is maximum employment, and so that's how we have framed it for this infographic that we'll be looking at today and doing a scavenger hunt with. We have one on price stability, the other part of our dual mandate. We have a poster on the circular flow. We have one of our newer ones is on taxes. We actually have 2 posters on taxes, one looking at it from an economic lens, the other one looking at it from a personal finance lens. And we also have one of our newer posters is on price ceilings and price floors. We also have 8 infographics on personal finance. They cover the topics of preparing for the unexpected. For instance, right now in Florida, where I'm based in, is already in hurricane season. And it looks at how do you financially prepare for emergencies. We have one that addresses the basics of banking. We have one on credit. It goes over credit scores, credit reports. The speaker who will be following me, Jeanette Bennett, she's going to be telling a little bit about our human capital infographic, investing in yourself. We have one on budgeting, saving and investing. We have one that covers the basics of entrepreneurship and characteristics of entrepreneurs, and then the personal finance look at taxes. We also have infographics on opportunity occupations, which are occupations that pay higher than the national median income or wage, but they do not require a 4-year college degree. And those are available for states within our 6th district. Our 6th district covers all of Florida, all of Georgia, all of Alabama, Eastern Tennessee, and Southern Louisiana and Mississippi. So these posters, as I said, they can be ordered. There's no charge for them. There's no shipping charge. They're completely free. Now, one thing, sometimes when I bring the posters, they are very attractive to hang up in the classroom, but okay. And so then, and they do make a nice decoration. I know that sometimes when you go to the teacher supply store, there's a lot of things for history or maybe other subjects and not for economics. So we've got you covered there. But they also do a little bit more, and there's a lot of different activities you can do with it. We're going to be doing a virtual scavenger hunt today. You could put these up in the classroom and have students gather information, as we're going to do virtually, from these posters, and kind of a scavenger hunt around the room. It's always good to get students up and moving and activities. They are built in blocks, and so you could cut them, the poster into blocks and have students do kind of a mini report out on their section of the infographic. But we also have an activity book, and this book is free. You can also order at the website where you order the infographics. So if you're getting your supply of infographics, make sure that you check the box that you would like to get the activity book as well, because it has extension activities. It has questions that can go along with the infographics on the content, but also these extension activities if you want to take a deeper dive. If you'd like to get bulk orders, I've got Amy Hennessy. She's our Director of Economic Education for our district. And if you have bulk orders, sometimes coordinators would like to order them for all of the econ or social studies teachers in their district, and you can also place those orders there. So we're going to be starting off with that, but I wanted to let you be aware of this free resource that you can order and have it in time for up in your classroom for your fall classes. And again, these are free, as well as the activity book is also completely free of charge. So, well, as we get started, we'll talk about maximum employment and how the Fed measures those labor market conditions. I'm going to do a Slido as well, because I have a different PowerPoint. You're going to have a different code, which I'm going to show here. And this is the code. And so my question for you is, how would you define maximum employment? And you can join in with a new code, which is 3206605. And so I will give people some time to type their answers for what is maximum employment. We're getting a lot of good answers here, and I like to see that people are bringing up some topics we're going to be addressing in a little bit, the different types of unemployment. We have a few more people getting their answers in. I'm going to close this out in just about a minute. We're getting some good things to discuss here, some really good things. All right, so I am going to close us out of that and look at maximum employment as the state of the economy, whereby all who are willing and able to work have the opportunity to do so. And that is what we pursue with our goal of maximum employment as part of our dual mandate that we received from Congress, as Eva mentioned, in the late 1970s. One thing I think that students might talk about there being no unemployment at all, a 0% rate, but we know that there's always going to be people who are perhaps they moved to a different part of the country and they are looking for a job. Maybe someone just graduated from high school or college and out there looking for a job. It could be someone retired and they said, you know, I'm kind of bored, maybe I'll work part-time, and they'll be looking for a job. So all who are willing and able to work and have the opportunity to do so is how we define the maximum employment. So we are going to do a scavenger hunt. So you're going to get a few tabs open here with this. If you can go to this link, and we might be able to drop it into the chat as well. This is the link to our maximum employment infographic. And I'm going to ask you to keep that tab open because that's going to be your reference for some of the questions I'm going to be asking you in Slido, and what I'm going to be taking you through to give you kind of a taste of what kind of activities we have in our activity book. This is actually from the activity for this infographic. So I'm going to give everybody a minute to get to the infographic and to take a look at the different parts of the infographic, as you're going to be referring to those as we go along. And you'll see that there's a lot packed in. There's a lot of information on this one poster. And so I'm going to start with our first question: in or out of the labor force? And you will see that on the infographic poster, it tells you what the labor force is. And we've got a little scenario. And so this is about Jordan. and his friends are amazed. They find out that he has a summer job at the local fast food restaurant. Not every employer will hire a 14-year-old, but Jordan got lucky, and he has a job for the summer. So is he in or out of the labor force? So it says explain your choice, which we're going to have just a simple poll here. And so is Jordan in or out of the labor force? Let me activate that poll here so you can answer. And if you need a reference, you've got your maximum employment infographic there to take a look at. You don't have a lot of votes, so I'm going to let more people get a chance to weigh in. Remember, it is anonymous. No one sees your answer, who it comes from, that is. So give it a try. We've still got some people weighing in, I can see. I'll give it another minute, maybe. All right, I've got a couple more people. I'm going to cut it off in just a few seconds. So get your answers in. All right, I think that's updated on my screen now. So Jordan has a job, but Jordan is not part of the labor force because Jordan is 14. And the labor force counts people who are 16 and older. And so that's something to make sure students understand, because you might have students who are 14, 15 who do have a job, but they are not counted as part of the labor force because they are not yet 16. And so that is one of the characteristics of the labor force that is on the infographic. And we're going to go on to the next one. This scenario has Corey. Corey graduated from college last month and has spent the last few weeks sending resumes to and interviewing with firms that are seeking out a financial analyst. And so think about this one, Corey, and I am going to launch the poll about Corey. Is Corey in or out of the labor force? Okay, we've got poll is moving. All right. My numbers have stopped moving here, so I think we are ready to weigh in. So Corey is not working, but Corey is actively looking for work. So Corey is counted as unemployed, and that makes him part of the labor force. So that is something that also I think is really important to emphasize with students, that the labor force is the employed and those who are counted as unemployed, both. And sometimes students have a hard time realizing that. And so that's something you want to make sure that they understand as well. All right, let's go on to the next one. Alice. So Alice joined the Marines after high school. In her new career, she enjoys training canine units to find explosives. Is Alice in or out of the labor force? I'm going to activate that poll.
Leslie, we have a question in the chat for you. It
Okay.
says, why was the age 16 chosen to determine that a person can qualify to be in the labor force?
That would be something that I would look at that. refer you to the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, for the answer to that one. They have all the guidance as to why each category was chosen. That's bls.gov would be the best place to go to find all the details and statistics on exactly how they formulated each category. All right, so we have got 91% saying that Alice is out of the labor force, and Alice is in the military, and so people who are in the military are not counted in the labor force number. Same thing for anyone who is in an institution, for instance, in a correctional facility, they would not be counted in the labor force numbers. And so Alice is out of the labor force. Okay, here's another one, and this one is going to test your skills. So Chloe sustained a serious knee injury 2 days ago while teaching her dance classes. She will not be able to go back to work for at least 4 weeks. So is she in or out of the labor force? And I'm going to launch that one for Chloe.
Leslie, you have another question.
Okay.
Somebody would like to know if she is considered an employee or self-employed. I don't know if that matters particularly, but that's a question.
I don't think that matters in this case.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so in this case, Chloe did work within the last week. And because she did work within the last week, she is counted as employed if she has not been out of work for at least a week. So Chloe is in the labor force at least for this week because she did work within the last week. So now we're going to talk about the measurement of unemployment using the maximum employment infographic. So go back to that tab you have open. And so we've got the U3 unemployment number, which takes looks at the labor force, looks at the number of unemployed, but then, and that's the number that you hear when you hear the May 9th, 2022 unemployment rate, 3.6%. That's been for the third month in a row. That's the U3 number. But there's also another number that's calculated, which is the U6, which includes some other categories of workers. And I want you to go to your infographic and tell me the answer to this question. And I'm going to launch that poll that says, what are those two groups that are included in the U6, but they are not in the U3? I believe these word clouds highlight, the big highlight is when we've got the same answer, as the most popular answers. All right, we've got some good answers here. So we are going to look at that. We've got the marginally attached and the PTER, or part-time for economic reasons. So marginally attached are people who want a job and they have looked for a job in the last 12 months. They were available for work, but they have not looked for work in the last 4 weeks. And so discouraged workers, I see somebody mentioned the discouraged workers, they're a subset of the marginally attached. They have not looked for work in the last 4 weeks for reasons such as they don't believe there's any work available for them. They can't find a job. Maybe they don't have the right schooling or training for the jobs that are available. The latest figures from May of 2022 puts about 1.5 million workers in the marginally attached category. Other people who would be considered marginally attached would be people who they would like to have a job, but they haven't looked for work in the past 4 weeks, maybe because of schooling or family obligations, or they have a health issue. They are having trouble with transportation in order to get to work. So that would be the marginally attached workers. And then the part-time for economic reasons, there's about a little over 4 million of those, which is about the same number that we had prior to the pandemic in February of 2020. And part-time for economic reason are workers who would like to have a full-time job, but they are working part-time for economic reasons. That's counted as they're working 1 to 34 hours. Maybe their hours have been cut. Maybe they can't find any full-time work. Could be just slack work conditions in their industry. Maybe it's because of the business conditions. They just can't find a full-time job. But they are, if we add up those categories, the current U6, which would include our discouraged workers, our marginally attached workers, and those who are part-time for economic reasons, is 7.1%. That's the May 2022 figures. The underemployed, they are counted as employed. Underemployed are people who have a job that's not matching their talents and skills, and that's another category, but that people who, but they are counted as employed. And so that is the difference between U3 and U6. Now, another part of the infographic is to calculate the unemployment rate. So if you have a pen and paper handy, this is your time to use those math skills. You can refer to the infographic if you'd like to, and we're going to have the fictional country of Jobtopia. And the first thing we've got to figure out is, and we're going to do this, it's going to be a multiple choice answer, but I want you to do your calculations first. So how many people are in the Jobtopian labor force? First, figure that out, because you're going to need that in order to calculate the U3 unemployment rate. So that's the rate that gets, that we hear on the news, the U3 unemployment rate. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of time to do those calculations, and then we're going to do the poll on them. So first, figure out the Jobtopian labor force using these statistics here, and then what is the U3 unemployment rate? Some people call that the headline unemployment rate, but it is the rate that gets reported on the news when the Bureau of Labor Statistics announces the unemployment rate. I'm going to give about another little minute or two. I'm going to get our poll ready. All right. How many people are in the the job-topian labor force. All right, so the answer that 56% of you chose, 485,100, that is correct, because the labor force includes the workers who are employed plus the unemployed. They are in the labor force. All right, so now we're going to see how you did on your calculation of the unemployment rate. So what is the U3 unemployment rate?
Hi, Leslie. We have another question in the chat asking if it's possible to have handouts for these particular questions.
Absolutely. Where you will find the handout, so that's a great question, because if you order this infographic and if you order the activity book, this comes from the activity book, and you will have this activity in that activity book for your use with your students. Absolutely. And it will come with a teacher key and everything you need to lead your students through this activity. All right, so 5%, that is the U3 unemployment rate for Jobtopia. All right, let's dig in a little bit deeper and look at types of unemployment. So here is Noreen, and Noreen quit her job as a construction worker 2 weeks ago to devote herself full-time to searching for a public relations job, a job which she holds, a field in which she holds a bachelor's degree. Is she unemployed? Okay, well, I'm only going to ask one question on this. You can put in the chat if you think she is unemployed or not. All right, and I hope that people said yes on that. And now let's go to the next question. What type of unemployment is Noreen experiencing? All right, this is excellent. Noreen is experiencing frictional unemployment. And so this would include people who are new to the job market, people who are going from one job to another, searching for a job. So that's the type of unemployment Noreen is experiencing. And now let's look at another scenario. And again, this comes from, I'm just taking you through the activity for this infographic that you can find in our activity book. Okay, so here we have Donna, and there's a downturn in economic activity. People are worried about the future, and what, as often happens in times like that, people are cutting back on their spending. Because of this change in consumer behavior, automobile producers are selling fewer cars, and Donna is a welder on the production line at a local car factory. So she lost her job 3 weeks ago, and she has been looking for a new position with other manufacturers in the state. Is she unemployed? You put that in the chat, because we're going to ask that type of unemployment question.
Everyone is answering yes so far.
Great job. Okay, now let's test you on what type. Now this is the one that I find students have one of the hardest times with. So this one I always call this kind of the red flag one, because this is the one that people are, you got to kind of, or the starred one that students sometimes have a really hard time with. So let's take a look at this one. What type of unemployment is Donna experiencing? So there's been an economic downturn. All right. Okay. I'm going to give everybody a gold star for types of unemployment, because we are doing fantastic. So because this is, Donna's experiencing unemployment that's associated with a recession in the business cycle, that would be cyclical. Now, I found students have a really hard time, even though it says it right in the name, cyclical, associated with the business downturn in the business cycle. They have a hard time distinguishing between cyclical and structural, and I think it's always important to really stress it's right there in the name, cyclical, the business cycle. But over the years I've seen that students sometimes get those mixed up. Now we've got one more scenario, and this is Kevin. And so Kevin lost his job as a cashier 4 months ago because the grocery store he worked at implemented a mobile app payment system for purchases. So now he doesn't ring up the purchases anymore. People are doing it on that mobile app. After 2 months of an unsuccessful job search, he stopped looking. And now he's applied for a cybersecurity program at a local technical college. He starts next week. And he does not plan to work while he's attending the program. So is Kevin unemployed? I'll let everybody answer that in the chat, and I'll let Robin report that back to me, what people are saying.
Mostly yeses, but a few no's. We've got a little mixed comment on there.
Okay, so Kevin is not working, and Kevin is not looking for a job. If he's not working and he's not looking for a job, he is not unemployed. So Kevin is not unemployed because he's not looking for a job. And the scenario, it says that he stopped looking. Now, if Kevin was searching for a job, if he was out there and his job had been replaced by a mobile app, that would be what we call structural unemployment. And that's caused by a mismatch of skills between what job seekers have and those that are demanded by employment. On our infographic, it shows somebody's job being replaced by a machine. That structural employment tends to be long-term. But in this scenario, Kevin is not unemployed because in order to be unemployed, you have to not have a job and also be looking for one. And he is not looking for one because he is a full-time student. So what Kevin is, since he's going to be a full-time student, Kevin is what we call not in the labor force. So not in the labor force are people who are not employed or unemployed. This could be full-time students like Kevin. It could be people who are retired, stay-at-home parents. Those would be people who would be considered not in the labor force, and that number's 99 million, and that's the latest statistic. So he is not in the labor force. He would be in that same category as our 14-year-old worker, not in the labor force. And so that is Kevin. One thing I wanted to highlight here is this comes directly from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, looking at a graph with unemployment statistics might not be the most exciting thing for your students. I think it's the most exciting thing in the world. But one thing here is they have a lot of different graphs and statistics tables that you can look at. And I highlighted two here because I think it reinforces something about the types of unemployment. So one thing I wanted to look at, and I highlighted here in the box, is and I looked at the seasonally adjusted numbers. And again, if you want to get into kind of the nitty gritty of how, the terminology and how the just the technical aspects of how these numbers are formulated, the BLS has a lot of information there where you can find those details. If you look at May of 2021, a year ago, you look at the reasons for unemployment. 63% of people who were unemployed was because they had lost their job or completed a temporary job. And then we have the job leavers, people who left their job. We had the re-entrants, which are people who left the labor force but now are coming back in. It could be for many different reasons. A new graduate, like I mentioned earlier, someone who's retired, who said, I'm kind of bored, I want to come back in. Maybe someone who stayed home with family for a while, have family obligations, and then are coming back in. And then the new entrants would be the people who are entering after just graduating from college or high school. People who are coming in for the first time, they would be categorized under new entrants, and re-entrants are those who were in the labor force and then came back in, left, and then came back in. And so I wanted to highlight that because I wanted to show kind of the progress that we've made from a year ago. When you look at it, the number of job losers and people who completed temporary jobs has now fallen to 45.2%. So that means 54.2% of people who are unemployed are in the frictional category. And that's the job search unemployment. Our job leavers, our re-entrants, people who left and have come back in, and then those new entrants, maybe people who are, getting a job for the first time, coming in after graduating from high school or college, for instance. And so I just wanted to show that you can highlight that frictional by just looking at the numbers right there. And so that is our types of unemployment. And to wrap us up, I wanted to look at another part that's on there just to tell you. We have something that's highlighted on the infographic. They look at it just a little bit different, but it comes from something called the Labor Market Distribution Spider Chart. That's something that we have at the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta website, which highlights some of the other categories and different surveys that we look at when we consider the labor market, because sometimes unemployment can rise, and it's because we have more people coming in searching for jobs. And so this labor market spider chart, it looks at 15 different measures of economic activity. It looks at employer behaviors. It looks at different categories of confidence and perceptions. And one of the activities is to actually look at this in depth and look at some of those different things we look at, things like hiring plans. This comes from a business survey where companies are asked, do they plan to hire in the next 3 months? If people think that jobs are available is another one of the factors there. And that is, do people think that in surveys that finding jobs are plentiful? When we look at businesses being unable to fill job openings, do they have at least one position that they're unable to fill? And on this chart, you can see that green ring there is April of 2020. That's when we hit our peak of around 15% of unemployment at the beginning of the pandemic. And then we have February 2020, just prior to the pandemic, is the blue line. And where we are right now is the orange line. And you can see that economic recovery here, but you can see some of the other, many other surveys from not just the Bureau of Labor Statistics, but also the National Federation of Independent Businesses, the Conference Board, National Compensation Survey, the Job Opening and Labor Turnover Survey. We look at all of those different things to get a full picture of what's going on in the labor market, because sometimes businesses, we have members of our staff that'll go out and talk to business people, and sometimes they'll start seeing trends before they make it into the official statistics. And so we look at that anecdotal evidence, and you can find that anecdotal evidence in a publication called the Beige Book. And so that's another part of that activity, is to look at that spider chart and look at some of the other ways that we look at the health of the labor market. And I also want to highlight a few multimedia resources in addition to our infographic on maximum employment from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. There is the Econ Lowdown video series, which I know you'll be hearing more about, the Econ Lowdown. I'm at the end of my time pretty much, so we're not going to show you a clip of that video, but that video, there is a video available on the labor market. It's also available in a podcast, and a lot of young people really like podcasts, and so you can learn more about the labor market there. There's also some short courses on unemployment. I have just a few highlighted here. You'll be hearing more about the Econ Lowdown online modules. There's 5 in the series on unemployment, short videos, delving into different aspects of unemployment, such as the story of unemployment. There's one on the consequences of unemployment, the types of unemployment, which I put you through your paces on that today, and everyone passed with flying colors. Education and the correlation between education and unemployment, and also how unemployment is measured. And so those are some other resources. One thing that I think is really a great strength of our Federal Reserve resources is that we have different types of resources, that multimedia and lessons that address a number of different learning styles, and you can use them with each other to bring this information to your students. And that concludes my presentation. I don't know if we have maybe a minute or two if we have any questions. I think I might be right at time, and I was worried I was going to have, I wasn't going to have, I have enough for time with you, and I absolutely did. So that's great, because we got some great questions and interaction.
Leslie, you're wonderful. There is a question in the chat that they'd like to know, is there a teacher's edition to the activity book that has the answer keys?
Absolutely. So all of the activities do include an answer key. Yes. So we encourage you to go out and order those infographics and the activity book.